Hey, Clavette here. Welcome back to Clavette's Corner, where I welcome you into my studio to take a look at the behind the scenes work that goes into writing my records. Now, last week we looked at all of the melodic and harmonic elements, the pianos, the synthesizers, all that good stuff going on in my new single, Never Stop, out on Deep Root Records. This week, I want to wrap up this record. So I want to focus on a few different elements here. I want to look at the vocals that are so present in this tune. I want to look at all of the effects that help finish and keep the flow of the record going, and also how I mix the record. There's a lot to cover. Let's jump into Ableton and take a look how I did it.
All right, we are in Ableton to wrap up Never Stop. So we've covered drums, we've covered the kick and bass, we've covered all of the melodic elements. Now it's time to get to the vocals, because that is another key element of this entire track. This vocal is from Splice, a little acapella I found, and cut up this little section that you hear right here. Loving you, I never stop loving you, I never stop loving you. Very lovey and inspiring. There's just a lot of rumble that I'm trying to cut out with this EQ. Pro C2. Loving you, I never stop loving you, I never stop loving you. Long attack. Pretty quick, medium-sized release. Just, again, controlling, not doing any more than like 2 to 3 dB of gain reduction, filtering going on, and then this Oxford inflator to add a little bit of level, perceived volume. We've got some sends and returns that this is going to. I've got it going to a mids verb, as I like to call it. I send a lot of like the melodic elements to this to kind of give them the same space. There's some micro shift, which is doing some, this is just widening the sound. So if you hear it, loving you, I never stop loving you, I never stop loving you. Very, very wide. Here's the delay. Loving you, I never stop loving you, I never stop loving you, I never stop needing you. And it's almost like a slap. It's very quick. Yeah, it's pretty much a slap delay. There's a little bit of verb. Valhalla. And there's a bunch of different parts, kind of similar to the piano. I like reusing different parts in different ways. Here's kind of an effect. I never stop, 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 I never stop. A lot of effects on there, a lot of reverb. Here is another cut. This is kind of a trick I like to do a lot with vocals, where I'll throw it through this sequencer and get this cool pattern that I can use in other parts of the track. So that kind of runs in different parts of the track, and that adds interest as we go along. Then I've got this other vocal that is really just used in the build-ups. And that's kind of just building tension, right? And then the final part is really, it's the same vocal, just used in a different way. So there's a lot of channels in here, and it looks like there's a lot of going on, but it's really just 2 elements. All of these elements come from this track, and these 2 elements are essentially the same. So it's not a ton going on. So let's check out the Vox bus real quick. Similar NLS channel, Neve style. Give it some summing. I use the BX Opto to kind of just control any peaks and keep it really smooth. Didn't want it to be too noticeable of compression. Got Decapitator, taking off a little bit of the top bend and driving it a little bit more. Loving you, I never stop loving you, I never stop loving you, I never stop. So this E setting is really bright. I can't remember exactly what it's emulating, but I love it on vocals to really just add that kind of extra sheen on top, the extra brightness that we need. Imager is just widening the whole. Loving you, I never stop loving you, I never stop loving you, I never stop. Just give it a little more width. And then the limiter. Loving you, I never stop loving you, I never stop loving you, again, I never stop needing you. Just taking off a little bit of the peaks and just controlling that. But we're almost there. Now, the effects are pretty simple. I'll just kind of show things that I do almost all the time. I always put these vinyl. So here's the vinyl that I like to put in almost all my tracks. Very low in the mix. I like it to kind of feel like a dusty record, especially when I'm emulating. I'm trying to go for a sound that's very Chicago house, very old school. Crashes. Another instance where I chose to print kind of the effects that I wanted to add to an element. So that's kind of a delay crash and reverb. More Foley that kind of goes with. I think that was, I recorded that in my studio actually. Riser. Reverse. Cymbal. Another sweep. Another down sweep. There's not much going on in here. These are just, pretty simple samples. Again, I really like to add the NLS on top of there. This is just pushing it to the side a little more and adding a little bit of level. You've seen this, guys. This isn't new. Are you taking notes? I kind of do it the same way on all these channels. Now to finish it up, on top of the stereo bus, I've got a few things. I've got this Amac EQ. This thing's really cool. It can be really surgical if you want it. It can be really broad, and it's a hardware unit, so it's emulating some hardware electronics, which is great. So again, just kind of some final touches on the stereo bus. I've got the Elysia Alpha. This is more of a mastering compressor, but I find it has advantages to using it when you're mixing as well. Has just a very nice warm tone, and you can never really be heavy-handed with this because the ratio only goes as high as about 2.4. So you're always going to kind of use it in a subtle, soft way. I love finishing my mixes with Black Box, another plugin alliance tool, driving the saturation really hard and then pulling the mix off and just adding into taste what you need. Soothe, doing some major work on the low end here just to make that super, 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 super smooth. And then I like to finish things off with Digital V3. And as you can see, it's not really doing much. I just added a little bit of stereo width. No EQing going on at all. So that is Never Stop, guys. That is how I built the track. I hope you learned something. Please comment if there's something you've learned that you're going to apply to your own productions, or if there's something you find a little bit interesting about my workflow. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for joining us here at Clavette's Corner. This has been Never Stop, the making of, and I look forward to seeing you on future episodes of this. Ciao.